Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the conference at Brews and Spirits 2022. Our next speaker is Amulya Pandit from Euromonitor. Euromonitor is also the knowledge partner for the Brews and Spirits, the Expo, and the conference. Amulya will be talking on a global review of the alcoholic drink markets with a focus on recovery in India. So a big weight on his shoulders. Amulya, I hope the Indian market is doing well. We'll hear more in a minute. Over to you, Amulya.
Thank you, Vikram. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amulya Pandit. I work for Euromonitor International in the capacity of a consultant researching alcoholic drinks in India. So today, I'll be giving a brief overview of the industry. Yeah, I hope I'm audible now. Sure. So before we move on to the actual presentation, a bit about Euromonitor. We are an independent market research provider. We help our clients in decision making when it comes to when, where, and how to grow their business. We are headquartered in London and we have 15 offices across the globe. We conduct research for more than 30 FMCG industries across 5 major verticals. And in addition, we also provide macroeconomic, socio-economic, and demographic data for more than 200 countries and territories. Lastly, we also conduct surveys to understand consumer behavior. So this is a quick snapshot of Euromonitor's industry coverage. The agenda of today's presentation is divided into 4 parts. As I am from a market research firm, it's only fair that I start with the numbers. Secondly, we'll look at some of the trends from the lens of mega trends. Thirdly, we'll also look at how e-commerce is expected to play an important role when it comes to the distribution. And finally, we'll have a quick look at the forecast and recovery of alcoholic drinks. As I've mentioned, we do research for more than 100 geographies. So one of our strengths is creating metaphors and parallels between different geographies. And that is what I'm going to do throughout the presentation. I hope you find it interesting. Moving on, please look at the graph on your left-hand side. And here you'll look at the global alcoholic drinks consumption standard at 250 billion liters in 2021. It has grown at 4.4%. In almost all the geographies, there has been significant growth. There are 3 basic reasons for that. One is low base, second is increased in-home consumption, and third, but minor, is slow and gradual recovery of on-trade. And if you look at on the right, the decline in India in 2020 was steep, so the recovery is also better, where the industry grew at 15%. If you look at the graph on the left-hand side, you'll notice that beer is the most dominating category. The trend is true for almost all the geographies, whether it's APAC region or any other country. However, India is a different market. We are a spirits drinking nation, and the overall consumption is dominated by whiskey. When I talk about the per capita consumption of beer, globally it stands at 23 liters. However, in India, it's just 2 liters. So you know that there is extreme potential, but it also highlights the issue, the way beer is taxed in India, making it inaccessible. Moving on. So in 2021, there were a select few markets which had double-digit growth. Those 2 significant markets were India and South Africa, and you guessed it right. Those were also 2 markets where the government had deemed alcoholic drinks as non-essentials. So it was not sold through retail outlets as well during the first lockdown, which resulted in huge dip, and therefore the growth in 2021 is also high for these 2 geographies. So we'll look at some of the products through the eyes of megatrends. Now, what are megatrends? These are long-term transformative forces that shape industries, societies, and global order. They represent consumer attitudes and behaviors. And when there is a change in consumer attitudes and behaviors, the way businesses interact with consumers also changes, which gives rise to opportunities as well as challenges. So our experts of industries and consumers have come up with these 8 megatrends, which will shape the future, or at least the next decade. There are specific macroeconomic drivers that are going to fuel these megatrends. Not all the megatrends might resonate with each and every industry. So for this specific industry, I would like to focus on 3 specific megatrends. The first is premiumization. You've already heard a lot about it. In simple words, premiumization is the ability to spend more on things that matter while cutting back on things that don't. However, if I were to talk about premiumization in alcoholic drinks terms, it will be to drink less but better quality of alcohol. The second is healthy living. So the pandemic has put health at the forefront. Consumers are placing a lot more equity on their health, and therefore some of the smaller categories are finding takers in some of the developed markets. And lastly, experience more. We all know that there has been a paradigm shift when it comes to consumption. The in-home consumption has increased drastically, but there has also been an increased need of replicating the on-trade experiences in off-trade. Consumers are more willing to experience new products and brands. So before I talk about premiumization, I want you to take back in time. As we are a market research organization, the first thing that we did during the pandemic was go back in time and look at an event which was similar to the pandemic, which has similar impact on the economy. The most recent we could find was the recession in the first decade of the century. So if you look at the value and volume breakdown, you can clearly see that there was premiumization even then. If I were to talk about the global trends, there is polarization that we have witnessed. When I talk about polarization, it's the demand gravitating towards the poles. So there is a section of middle income consumers whose incomes were impacted and they downgraded. So even the economy brands found a lot of takers. Now this might not be true in India, because here what happens is when it comes to the entry-level consumers, they downgrade to illicit. But some of the developed markets, they did not have the luxury because the penetration of illicit is not as high as it is in India. When it comes to premiumization, it is basically fueled for a number of reasons. One was lack of discretionary spending options. So consumers were spending a huge amount of time in 2020 and 21 in their homes. They were not able to pursue the outdoor activities or hobbies, and some of that money went in alcoholic drinks. Second is the comparative affordability when it comes to buying a brand in off-trade vis-a-vis on-trade. And lastly, in most developed markets, there were stimulus packages that were given to unemployed people. And surprisingly, some of them spent that money on alcoholic drinks. In India also, there has been a uptick when it comes to premium whiskies, and in most of the premium segments, the growth has been in high teens. Another result of premiumization and experience more is craft. Now, when I start with the definition, I'm sure it won't be very popular in this room, but because we conduct research for more than 100 geographies, it's important for us to standardize the definitions. So when it comes to craft in India, we use 3 themes to define craft. One is limited production, which is 10 million liters. Second is it's not more than 25% owned by an external entity. And third is there are innovative or traditional methods used. So if you look at the penetration across APAC, you realize that South Korea and Singapore lead the craft penetration. In India, it's as low as 0.5. When it comes to defining this particular industry or forecasting it, there are a lot of challenges. As I've mentioned, if a particular brand exceeds 10 million liters, then it's no longer a part of what we call as craft. Similarly, if a company gets acquired by a bigger player, then also we don't consider it as craft. So I may say that this year, the craft penetration is as high as 3, but next year it might be again low as 2, just to give an example. Moving on. Again, these are some of the trends which are very popular in developed markets, but we know that the trends eventually seep through other territories as well. So if you look at the demand of non-alcoholic spirits, that has risen particularly in Western Europe as well as North America. The companies who extend these products are basically targeting 2 things. So first, they are looking at sober, curious events. And secondly, they are also targeting dry hospitality venues. So there has been an uptick in the health and wellness trend, and that is driving this particular trend. Also, if you look at this trend, it is also a culmination of the concept of mindful drinking. Now, you might think that it's a result of teetotalism, but that's not the case. It is a result of people having their own life choices and personal brand curation in the age of social media. And lastly, we'll look at another category, which is RTDs. Again, it's a fledgling category when it comes to the Indian market, but it has found a lot of takers outside. This was the only category in 2020 that witnessed a growth. Granted, the base is low. However, the need for people to replicate on-trade experiences was probably the biggest driver when it comes to this category. In India also, we have seen a proliferation of cocktail culture, particularly in tier 1 cities and metros. And therefore, we think that in future, this category will find a lot of takers. Convenience obviously plays an important part. And in the last 1 year, we have seen a lot of NPDs in this particular category. Again, we have a session where we'll discuss the importance of e-commerce in alcoholic drinks, something that I'm also looking forward to. Here, what I'm doing is giving you a global overview. Historically, we have seen that when it comes to alcoholic drinks, it has been underrepresented in non-store retailing. It is one of the last few industries which has still not been disrupted by e-commerce. However, the pandemic changed that. A lot of governments, including some of the state governments in India, allowed e-commerce to maintain social distancing. Now here I would like to highlight the potential in some of the regions. If you look at in North America, the year-on-year growth is pretty high. One of the major drivers was that they allowed e-commerce in on-trade as well. So you could place an order through online delivery platforms and order liquor online, which played a very important role. In some of the other geographies, the base was pretty low, and that's why the potential is high. However, when it comes to the global penetration of e-commerce, it stands at 3.4%. If we were to compare it with, say, non-alcoholic drinks in India, most of the major players get their 4 to 8% of their revenue from e-commerce. So the potential is there, the growth is there. All we need is regulations which aid the growth of this particular channel. And finally, I would like to focus on the industry forecast model. So here we use a lot of hard drivers as well as soft drivers to understand the forecast of a particular market. If you look closely, we predicted that in 2022, we'll reach the 2019 levels globally for all major markets. When it comes to India, we'll reach the 2019 levels in 2023. The primary reason being that beer had a substantial decline. And to make matters worse, the lockdowns coincided with the peak period of beer. So when it comes to spirits, we'll have a forecast growth of close to 5% over the next 5 years. In beer, it will be as high as 8 to 9%. Moving on. Now I've already reiterated that though things are looking good, but we have still not reached the 2019 levels. So to end this presentation, I would like to create a parallel with the last century. On the face of it, it might sound absurd, because how can you compare something that happened 100 years ago? But if you look at the factors on the ground, they were more or less the same. There was a lot of economic polarization, political polarization, as well as social polarization, something that exists in today's environment. Also, there was a time when in 1918 that the First World War had just ended, and after that the Spanish flu ended. So there was a significant amount of time that consumers spent at home, and they missed socializing. So after 2020, when they were given the opportunity, they indulged themselves, and the consumption of alcohol went up. So I hope that is the case where people consume less but better quality of alcohol, which aids the growth of the industry. That's it from my side. Thank you for listening. And finally, I would also like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.